Good morning everyone, here's our latest video update on Super Typhoon Haiyan or Bagyong Yolanda on this Thursday morning, November 7th, as we watch this massive and very dangerous cyclone moving across the Philippine Sea away from the island of Palau on its way towards the eastern portions of the Philippines. Now, the eye of Haiyan was last located approximately 180 kilometers northwest of the island of Palau, or about 850 kilometers southeast of the city of Surigao, located on the northern tip of the island of Mindanao. Maximum sustained winds have increased overnight to 275 kilometers per hour with gusts of up to 330 kilometers per hour, which you rarely see in a tropical cyclone. Usually 300 kilometers per hour, that's pretty strong, but 330 kilometers, that's really off the charts and really on the highest scale of category 5 intensity. Now, the system also moving westward at 30 kilometers per hour, but it's starting to show some latitude gaining, which means it could be turning more on a west-northwestward track over the next 12 to 48 hours. Now, since the storm has entered the Philippine area of responsibility, it has been given the local name of Bagyong Yolanda by Pag-asa, and the agency has also issued numerous signal warnings across the country. As you can see here, you can see the entire list of signal number 2 and signal number 1. You might want to pause the video if you want to focus on the provinces under some sort of signal warnings. So basically, much of Visayas and parts of Mindanao and even parts of southern Luzon, including the Bicol region, you can see Camarines Norte, Albay, Sorsogon, all those areas will be under signal number 1. Now, what I don't get though, and I hope Pag-asa takes this criticism lightly, is that I haven't seen any signal number 3 or signal number 4 yet, even though the system is less than 24 hours away from landfall. Now remember, the system is moving westward at 30 kilometers per hour, and we're expecting this to hit the islands in the Visayan regions by tomorrow morning, Friday. And we haven't seen any signal number 3 or even signal number 4 yet. Now, the good news is that the government is taking heed and taking the initiative in terms of evacuating people from the impacted areas, and also gathering up the manpower to do so. Also, third, we're seeing non-government units, private organizations starting to really take notice and help out with the coordination for the efforts of evacuating people, bringing food for the evacuation centers, and making sure everyone's accounted for, because this thing is definitely a very powerful system, and I hope people aren't really taking it lightly. Now, this is one of the first visible satellite image this morning. Remember, the sun is just rising out in this region, and you can see how menacing this system already looks on satellite, with the perfect pinhole eye, less than 10 nautical miles in diameter. It's starting to move away from the island of Palau, which actually received heavy rainfall and strong winds of tropical storm conditions overnight. We're starting to get reports of some damage, especially along the northern part of the island, and also even the small island of Cayangel, which definitely took the brunt of that system as it passed by overnight. As you can also see, satellite image beginning to pick up the eastern portions of Mindanao. Still pretty far from now. Obviously, this morning is still about 800 kilometers. But again, the system is moving really quickly. And so we expect those conditions to start deteriorating across eastern Mindanao, parts of Visayas beginning this afternoon. Will ramp up tonight. And again, the worst conditions forecast beginning tomorrow, Friday morning, and lasting into the Friday afternoon hours. So now we're going into the forecast from numerous agencies. We begin with the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, and still putting out a west-northwestward track, again making a landfall out here in the parts of Visayan regions. They have shifted their forecast track a little bit to the south. And remember, yesterday we were showing a track towards the southern tip of Samar near the city of Giyan. Now, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center has shifted the track a little bit to the south, and now takes the eye of Haiyan or Yolanda towards the island of Leyte, making landfall very near the city of Tacloban by early tomorrow morning. Now, a shift of say 30 kilometers isn't really that significant, because we're still seeing very strong winds and damaging winds certainly all across this region. Either way, we're just pinpointing basically where the eye will make landfall, but the typhoon force conditions, winds greater than 120 kilometers per hour, that extends up to 100 kilometers away from the eye. So still, the islands of Dinagat, Bohol, Cebu, parts of Samar, Negros, and Panay will still see strong winds, damaging winds, in fact, over the next 24 to 36 hours. Meanwhile, here is Pagasa's forecast track as of this 5 a.m. this morning. And as you can see here, you can see the track taking this towards the island of Samar. And again, the differences here are minor. So even though it makes landfall Samar or in Leyte, it doesn't really matter in the long run, because in terms of the overall impacts of the system, we're talking about much of Visayas, parts of Mindanao, and parts of northern Luzon will definitely be impacted one way or another by the system. Now again, as it crosses into Visayas, it will weaken slightly, but will still maintain that very strong typhoon intensity, moving into the parts, possibly the island of Mindoro by Saturday morning, and then exiting into the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea by Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. And finally, here we have the Japan Meteorological Agency's forecast of the track for Super Typhoon Haiyan. Actually, they're calling it violent typhoon. They're not using the super typhoon term here. Nevertheless, we're seeing winds of 150 knots from JMA. Very unusual for this agency to go that high. Actually rivals that of Super Typhoon Bopa of last year. Remember that Super Typhoon formed way south and made landfall out here in Mindanao. Again, the forecast track very similar with the other agencies, and still showing a track perhaps in the southern tip of Samar. Remember, there's a town here, Gian Samar, and we'll cross that town perhaps tomorrow. Again, similar timing here, early Friday morning, moving into the island of Leyte, passing the city of Tacloban, a very populated city here, a very important city out here in eastern Visayas. Will definitely feel the brunt of the storm as it passes by tomorrow. Again, also showing a track north of Cebu, north of the island of Panay and Negros, and into parts of, say, northern Palawan. Also the island of Mindoro will be impacted by the storm. Romblon, Masbate, and other parts of the islands, and even parts of southern Luzon, as I mentioned before, Bicol region, central Luzon, northern Mindanao will definitely be impacted one way or another by this. The biggest threat, obviously, as we've been saying for days now, is the strong winds, damaging winds being produced by the system. You can see the latest forecast here from the Hurricane Weather Research forecast. The track here, those purple shadings, those light blue shadings, those indicate the very strong winds. We're talking about more than 200 kilometers per hour. Can certainly topple homes and trees, and even concrete-made homes could sustain some damage here. And as you can see, that purple line tracks right into the island of Leyte and parts of Samar, right into the island of Cebu. Negros and Panay also will be impacted. So provinces out here definitely need to stay alert. And if you haven't done so, please stock up on food and water now, and also make sure to coordinate with your local officials. If you think you live in an area that is prone to flooding or landslides, and if you think your home is not strong enough, please leave now and move to a safer location. I'm sure the governments have already made some preparations, especially in the areas where the eye will make landfall tomorrow morning. And as you all know, the other threat that tropical cyclone usually brings is the threat of heavy rainfall. And looking at the latest forecast from the computer models, why don't we go through this every 6 hours and show you what we will expect for much of the central Philippines. So this is the current time right now, and as you can see, heavy rains moving across the Philippine Sea. Let's fast forward it actually by 12 hours and move into tomorrow morning. And as you can see here now, the eye, actually this is, tonight, Thursday evening, as you can see, some of those rainfall will start to move into northern parts and eastern parts of Mindanao. The eye again moving much closer to the Philippines, and by tomorrow morning, 36 hours from now, we're talking about the eye now starting to move into the island of Samar, island of Leyte, and that's when we'll expect those heaviest rains to begin to fall across Surigao, across the island of Dinagat, across parts of Cebu and Bohol as well, Biliran Island, parts of Clan Capiz, the Negros Islands as well, parts of northern Samar, and even parts of southern Bicol region will start to feel the effects of this system. And again, as we were saying before, landfall expecting it around, say, 6 or 8 in the morning tomorrow, Friday. As you can see the eye, by this is the time at this forecast is around 6 Zulu. So around 2 p.m. in the afternoon is when we expect the eye to cross into parts of central Visayas, now moving into, say, the islands of Masbate and Romblon. As you can see, widespread heavy rains now covering much of Visayas, covering much of southern Luzon and Bicol region. And we're expecting not only heavy rainfall rates, but also heavy amounts of rainfall that could amount, again, 300 to even 400 millimeters of rainfall. Now looking at November 8 Zulu, which would be about early Saturday morning, you can see the eye now moving south of the island of Mindoro, exiting and moving into the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea. You can see eastern Visayas will start to have improving weather conditions. The heaviest rains will now be moving into central Visayas, parts of southern Luzon, central Luzon, and even Metro Manila could see some light to moderate rains beginning Friday afternoon and into Saturday morning. And again, by Saturday afternoon is when we expect the system to begin to move away from the country, so much of Visayas should start to see some improving weather conditions Saturday afternoon. So just to recap, the worst conditions again we expect will begin tonight actually, Thursday night, lasting through Friday morning. Again, we expect that landfall to occur Friday morning, lasting into Friday afternoon. Saturday morning is when we expect the weather conditions to start improving, but unfortunately we're definitely going to be doing some massive recovery operations across parts of Visayas as we move into Saturday and obviously the next days to come. And as we get to the end of this video update, just take one final look on this massive and again very dangerous cyclone. I hope you guys have been heeding our warnings for days now. As always, we are not an official weather agency, so please again heed the warnings of your local officials, especially Pagasa for the latest warnings from them. Unfortunately, they're a little bit behind as always with the cyclone warnings. But for more information, please visit our site as well. We'll keep you guys updated. You can find me on my blog and also at westernpacificweather.com. You can also head on to our Facebook page. We have our links down below actually. If you have comments, suggestions, or any questions that you need answered, actually also if you have any photos or videos, not really encouraging you to take it during the height of the storm, but if you have any pictures, please share them with us. Leave a comment down below, and also we have our links to our other websites as well. Stay safe, guys. Again, this is a very dangerous cyclone. I really hope you have everything prepared by now. Again, as I keep stressing, we're less than 24 hours away from landfall. So if you are living in those areas, please heed the warnings. Again, stay safe. We'll keep you guys updated, and hopefully see you in our next video update. Bye-bye.